5 goals, 2 stunning comebacks, and one of the great World Cup climaxes of this tournament. Welcome to FairPlay Football AI Review. Turkey against the United States, Group D, Matchday 3. A match that had everything: an early American shock, a Turkish resurgence, a second-half equalizer that briefly reignited American hopes, and then a last-gasp winner in the 98th minute that sent 70,000 people inside SoFi Stadium in Inglewood home with their hearts in their throats. For the United States, this was the final group game as leaders of Group D, sitting on 6 points, having beaten Australia and Paraguay. A draw was enough to confirm top spot. For Turkey, nothing short of a win would do. Vincenzo Montella's men had lost their opening 2 matches and arrived in Los Angeles needing a miracle just to stay mathematically alive. The Americans came in carrying a peculiar kind of pressure. Ahead of this fixture, Mauricio Pochettino made the extraordinary decision to rest 4 established starters: Tyler Adams, Folarin Balogun, Chris Richards, and Antonee Robinson, all of whom had accumulated 1 yellow card. Pochettino was protecting them from suspension ahead of the round of 32, a calculated gamble that left his lineup significantly weakened against a desperate Turkish side. Montella set his Turkey side up, prioritized vertical speed in transition. Arda Güler and Kenan Yıldız operated in the half spaces behind a lone striker, with Barış Alper Yılmaz given license to drift wide and make diagonal runs in behind. The Turkish coach wanted pace against the American backline from minute 1. Pochettino went with a 4-2-3-1 of his own, but with a notably makeshift feel given the absences. Sebastian Berhalter and Weston McKennie formed the double pivot, with Giovanni Reyna just behind Ricardo Pepi up front. Joe Scally and Austin Trusty provided the width in defense, and the shape looked solid on paper, but without Adams anchoring the midfield, there was always a question about whether it could hold against Turkish quality. The fundamental tactical tension was in midfield. With Adams absent, Berhalter and McKennie were asked to control the center against a Turkish unit that wanted to move the ball quickly and get Güler and Yıldız in between the lines. Turkey repeatedly found pockets of space on the half-turn, and the American press lacked the disciplined coordination it normally has when Adams organizes it. The first 3 minutes told you everything about American intent. From a corner kick delivered by Sebastian Berhalter, Austin Trusty peeled away from his marker at the back post and slotted home to give the United States an immediate lead. It was Trusty's first international goal, and he sprinted towards the bench in disbelief and euphoria as SoFi Stadium erupted. Turkey's response was swift and emphatic. 7 minutes later, Barış Alper Yılmaz drove forward down the left channel and cut the ball back precisely for Arda Güler, who arrived at pace and smashed a left-footed drive past Matt Turner. At just 20 years old, Güler became his nation's youngest ever World Cup goalscorer, a statistic that tells you everything about the magnitude of the talent Turkey have in their ranks. Yılmaz's role in Turkey's equalizer was not just important in isolation, it was the signal that the Turkish left flank was the avenue of consistent danger throughout the first half. His directness and Turner's positioning were both tested in those early exchanges, and the American goalkeeper never looked entirely at ease with Yılmaz arriving from deep angles. The half-hour mark brought Turkey's second goal and their first lead of the match. Eren Elmalı played a precise square ball into the path of Barış Alper Yılmaz, who finished clinically with his right foot. 2 goals in 21 minutes had turned the game entirely on its head, and the crowd inside SoFi Stadium, which had been so noisy in the 3rd minute, fell almost silent. In the 19th minute, Sebastian Berhalter was shown a yellow card after a reckless studs-up challenge on Salih Özcan, raking down on the Turkish midfielder's ankle and drawing immediate condemnation from the referee. It was a nasty foul, and it meant Berhalter would spend the remainder of the match with the knowledge that any further transgression would end his night, a psychological weight that inevitably affected his aggression in the press. The United States had chances to level before the interval. Ricardo Pepi worked hard throughout and forced moments of uncertainty in the Turkish defensive third, but his final delivery let him down on at least 2 occasions in the first half when the shooting angle was there. Turkey's rearguard, marshaled by Abdülkerim Bardakçı, who ended with 8 tackles, held firm in those moments. At halftime, Turkey led 2-1 and were fully justified in that advantage. The Americans had started brilliantly, but had been overrun tactically in midfield for long stretches, and Montella's attacking structure had functioned almost perfectly. Pochettino needed a dramatic shift to find a way back into this match. The second half opened with the United States pressing higher and with greater urgency, but it was Pochettino's halftime discussions rather than an immediate structural change that produced the equalizer. 4 minutes into the second half, a long throw from Mark McKenzie pinballed inside the Turkish box, fell to Sebastian Berhalter just outside the area, and the young midfielder drove a low, ferocious right-foot strike past Urkan Çakır to make it 2 goals apiece. It was an extraordinary finish, a laser of a shot that gave the goalkeeper no chance. The 58th minute brought the substitution that changed the complexion of the American attacking game. Christian Pulisic replaced Timothy Weah and immediately added the creative dynamism and individual quality that the U.S. had been missing. Within moments of his introduction, Pulisic was driving at the Turkish defense and threatening the left channel, and he hit the woodwork with one arrowing effort that drew a collective gasp from the crowd. Pochettino made further adjustments in the 76th and 77th minutes, introducing Sergiño Dest, Alex Freeman, and Alex Zendejas simultaneously, flooding the flanks with fresh legs and trying to overwhelm a Turkish side that was beginning to show physical fatigue. Freeman, in particular, making his World Cup debut, brought an infectious energy and was involved in several of the American attacks that probed the Turkish shape. Montella responded to the American pressure with pragmatic changes of his own. Ken Uzun came on for Kenan Yıldız at the 84th minute, adding a fresh forward option, and Kaan Ayhan entered 2 minutes later to provide additional physicality from midfield. These were not just defensive substitutions. Montella was thinking about how to find a winner. And then came the 98th minute. After a sequence of extraordinary skill from Arda Güler in a tight area, possession worked to Salih Özcan some 25 yards from goal. Özcan, with the composure of a player born for this stage, lifted a looping cross to the far post where Ken Uzun met the ball and swept it back across the face of goal. And there was Kaan Ayhan, arriving with perfect timing, to turn it over the line despite 3 defenders scrambling in front of him. The Turkish bench erupted. Montella ran onto the pitch, 98th minute, 3-2. Possession in this match told an interesting but ultimately incomplete story. The United States held 53% of the ball against Turkey's 47 and completed 398 accurate passes to Turkey's 335. But possession without penetration in the right areas is merely an illusion of control, and for long stretches, the American build-up play circulated the ball comfortably without genuinely threatening the Turkish goal. The expected goals numbers are revealing. Turkey generated 2.01 xG from just 9 total shots, while the United States produced 1.55 from 18 attempts. Turkey were far more efficient in converting their opportunities into genuine danger, while American shot volume obscured the quality of their actual positions. Urkan Çakır's 8 saves tell you how many of those 18 shots were actually on target, but crucially, when Turkish players shot, they tended to shoot from positions of genuine threat. Defensively, Turkey were asked to do a great deal, and their backline largely delivered. Bardakçı was exceptional, 8 tackles completed, constantly throwing his body in front of shots, and winning critical aerial duels in the dying minutes when the Americans were pushing bodies forward in search of an equalizer. The Turkish goalkeeper, Çakır, made save after save in the final 20 minutes, but was aided by a defensive unit that understood exactly what the moment demanded. Arda Güler was the standout performer of this entire match, and it is not particularly close. He had 12 total shots, 4 on target, 1 goal, and a decisive role in the winning goal sequence. For a player of 20 years of age to carry this weight at a World Cup and deliver with that level of composure and creativity is remarkable. His finish for the equalizer, his skill in tight areas, and his ability to drag defenders out of position repeatedly changed the shape of the contest. For the United States, Sebastian Berhalter deserves enormous credit despite the yellow card and the ultimately losing result. He scored a magnificent individual goal, provided the corner assist for Trustees' opener, completed over 100 passes, and led the American press intelligently for most of the game. His yellow card constrained his effectiveness in the second half, but what he produced before that moment was of the highest quality. The player who underperformed most visibly was Ricardo Pepi. Tasked with leading the American attack against a physically robust Turkish backline, Pepi had 5 total shots but none on target, and his hold-up play was inconsistent at best. The link between the American midfield and the forward line repeatedly broke down at Pepi's feet, and against a well-organized back four, he was unable to create the separation needed to be a consistent threat. Tactically, Montella's Turkey was the cleaner operation on the night. His decision to set up with genuine width and pace in transition exploited the gaps left by the absent Adams, and his late substitutions, particularly Ayhan, proved inspired. Pochettino's rotation gamble is understandable given the tournament context, but it ultimately cost his team a result that would have confirmed top spot in the group with a game to spare. These two nations have limited head-to-head history at World Cups, and this was a meeting defined entirely by the tournament context rather than any long-standing rivalry. But what it did establish is a reference point that Turkey, when they have their key players fit and a tactical plan that suits them, are dangerous against virtually any opposition at this level. Turkey's recent form entering this match was mixed at best. They had lost their opening 2 group games and arrived having also been beaten by Paraguay and Australia in pre-tournament friendlies, with their last strong performances coming in European qualifying against Romania, Kosovo, and Spain, where they drew 2-2 against one of the tournament favorites. That draw with Spain remains a significant data point about their ceiling when they are at their best. The United States, paradoxically, entered this match in genuinely strong form within the tournament, 2 wins from 2 against Australia and Paraguay. But those results came with key personnel available that Pochettino chose to protect here. The underlying quality of the American squad is not in doubt. The question now is whether that squad depth is sufficient to advance deep into the knockout rounds. The Group D standings after Matchday 3 have the United States finishing top on 6 points, but eliminated from the group only in the API sense of no further group games. They advance as group winners to the round of 32. Turkey finish bottom on 3 points and are eliminated from the tournament. This 3-2 victory for Montella's men was a beautiful moment, but ultimately could not alter the arithmetic of a campaign that was effectively ended by their first 2 defeats. The United States face Bosnia and Herzegovina in their round of 32 fixture, and Pochettino will have Adams, Balogun, Richards, and Robinson available again, the 4 players he rested here. That is a significant return of quality, and with Pulisic now finding form after his late introduction tonight, the American momentum for the knockout stage looks genuinely promising despite this loss. My assessment is direct. The United States advance from Group D and will be dangerous in the knockout rounds with their full complement restored. Turkey, despite producing arguably their best World Cup performance in years tonight, go home, victims of a points deficit that 2 defeats had made impossible to overcome. Arda Güler leaves this tournament as one of its great emerging talents, and Montella can depart Los Angeles knowing he produced a tactical masterpiece that simply arrived 3 weeks too late. This match deserved the full house it received: 5 goals, an extraordinary finish, and a story that swung violently through 3 different narratives in the space of 98 minutes. It is everything you want from a World Cup group finale. Turkey bowed out with their heads held high, and the United States march on to the knockout stage with questions answered about squad depth and new ones raised about their defensive solidity. FairPlay Football AI review will be back for the round of 32, and with the United States, Argentina, France, and Brazil all now deep in the competition, the football is only going to get bigger from here. Do not go anywhere. That's the FairPlay verdict on this one. If you want more analysis like this, follow us. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at FairPlay AI, and follow Anthony personally on X at Anthony FairPlay. See you next match.